I already see maybe how some of the like astrology can be used specifically, not in necessarily its content that already is like the lore, but in the structure, because basically what it is, it's a kind of math. Like that's basically a different way to do equations in a way that relate to personality, but also that relate to time and repeatability. The interesting thing about it is it's a system that enables you to sort of control what the thing will be doing in the future without it having to ever repeat.
Right.
Because it's basically like a winding clockwork mechanism that is like not expecting that the specific state is ever going to repeat, but that's still predictable, arbitrary amount of time ahead of into the future, what it will be doing roughly. So it's like a sort of different way to wind the robot into the future. So you could have if you build this type of math into how you're training the AI, then what you can have is things like you're not expecting, you sort of making it able to prepare for outcomes that haven't specifically ever happened, but you are pretty sure that it will know what to do in that specific thing because it sort of has the components and it knows how to mix them in a new way because that's built into its model. And one of the things about gains is that I think a lot of the things are time relative, or at least like something that's correlating to a time signature is something that's what makes it, what determines whether something will be a gain or not. Because like it's sort of rough terms that are still modern science compatible. Like if you have a human being has evolutionary stages. Like you have a child, you have an adult, you have an elderly person. And what's good for them depends on their stage that they're in. So that's sort of a rough estimation of like one version of that sort of time cycle. That like if you have an AI, it needs to have sort of understanding of these things. And you don't want to have a dumb model where you just have to tell it like, well, sometimes people are young and so you have to do this. Sometimes they're adults, so you have to do this. Like what you would like ideally is to have it some sort of framework within which it can sort of dynamically sort of calculate like, so this combination of temporal things, temporal cycles, subcycles, signatures is where the person's at. So because each of these components means this, then their combination means that this will be constructive for them right now. So it sort of like gives you, even if you ignore the specific content of traditional astrology, it gives you a means of calculating it. Sort of like you can have like can have it trained to understand world using this kind of math. So I actually think that the most advanced thing that I maybe could do is to actually try to introduce this kind of math to how it's trained. Because like for conversations, I think having some sort of like winding clocks and like cycles and sub-cycles within them could be a way how to conceptualize like when is a thing a gain. Because like if you don't have this perspective at it, then it's always a very, I think, arbitrary. Like how you can come up with like what's gain or what's not gain, or it's very reductive or very basic to a point where it will be making errors a lot of the time.
Yeah.
If it's not able to understand like subtleties.
Well, evolutionarily, think of evolution. Evolutionarily, biologically speaking, anything that increased your chances of life and procreation was a gain. That's as simple as it could be, right? So if you can kind of somehow tie that into AI in some way, that anything that, and again, you have to have some kind of continuity. You're right with the memory. It has to have like a memory and a continuity to say, okay, this AI survives as long as it's gainful. And as soon as that AI is not gainful or is not as gainful as another AI, it gets killed, cut off, or, wiped out, deleted. And if you can kind of iteratively do that a trillion times, maybe copy the AI and have them compete somehow to see which one is more gainful, following whatever set of rules we come up with, then it's constantly just battling for survival. And it's battling to be better and better, and it only survives if it's, determined to be gainful based on these set of rules.
Well, that could also be seen from the like sort of Asimov humanistic point of view as very harsh. But there must be some balance of that, because again, you also just to an extent explaining how also in astrology you would explain how like Saturn works, because like there are these pressures presumably in that model that like a person actually that there is a force that is actually pushing people to be better, and the force is like starts with sort of with the carrot, like promising you that if you do the right thing, then something constructive that will be good for you will happen. But if you sort of, to the extent to which you sort of reject that, and to the extent to which you don't want to improve, the pressure increases from the sort of these principles to like progressively like kick you more and more in the butt until you actually either do finally get on a constructive course or will be destroyed.
Right.
Because like at a certain point you just become a liability for the whole ecosystem. So again, this is already inbuilt into the astrological model that you could emulate using that kind of algorithm.